Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everybody. So good to have you here. This gentleman is so positive in what he's done and continues to be in terms of an urban regional planner at University of Pittsburgh. He's got his finger on the pulse of everything when it comes to urban planning, and has over the years and still does. He's our man of the year. Richard Golden Bickel Jr. is back with us. Richard, welcome. How are you doing today?
Very good. Thank you.
It's good having you back here, and learned a lot in the times that we've talked so far about what goes into planning metropolitan areas, cities, and all. I want to start with an email we got, and I believe we inspired somebody last time we got together. Instant feedback steve@gmail.com is how you can reach us. And this is from Jesse, who's checking in from Cocoa Beach, Florida, and says, in order to be an urban planner, do you need to have a master's degree?
You don't have to have a master's degree. There are schools that teach urban planning at the undergraduate level. The Planning Accreditation Board reviews the curriculum, the professors, the student body, etc., and grants accreditation. If you can have an accredited undergraduate program, and you can have an accredited master's degree program.
So, with that, let's just say that you wanted to pivot off to another career that was related. Let's say you started off as an urban planner. You know, that was your goal. But then, hey, wait a minute, you found something else. What are some of the other related careers? I would think maybe a surveyor would be one, plays an important role in everything in terms of projects. Are there other careers that you can think of that are somewhat related?
Well, you could use your planning background to get involved in environmental issues and transportation issues, and surveyor might be a little nitty-gritty for the average urban planning student, but it's all related to the building professions and development issues and the interaction with the public and with local officials.
For you personally, did you always have an interest in geography? You know, did that intrigue you in terms of land heights and all of that?
Indirectly. As a kid, my father subscribed to National Geographic, and I really enjoyed looking at that magazine, especially the maps that they used to include in the issues. And that gave me an interest in archaeology and geology and ancient history. On the other hand, I wanted to become a doctor, and so when I started at Pitt as an undergraduate, I exempted the first course in biology, and started out with a goal of becoming a doctor. And I didn't realize there was something called chemistry that you had to take in order to become a doctor. And as many wannabe doctors find out, chemistry and organic chemistry are very difficult subjects, and that sunk my ambition to become a doctor.
I'm totally right there with you. It runs deep. Interesting how you went from that to urban planning. What was the thing that your aha moment where it sunk in, like, yeah, you know, I'm going in this direction now?
Well, I had become a biology major initially, and when I didn't do too well in chemistry, I decided I better find a new profession. And so I looked around, and I took an urban geography course in my junior year, and that the professor was a professor in the planning school. And so I ended up learning about the tie-in between geography and urban geography and urban issues. And that's where I decided, well, now I'm going to go into planning. And fortunately, Pitt had a good planning school, and so I was able to stay at Pitt and exempt the first course in the planning school, and then started right into the master's degree program.
When you look back at your career, all of it, what is the one or two things that really connect with you, that you truly enjoy doing? What do you think it would be?
I think first it was the variety of activities and the variety of courses in an undergraduate program at a campus like Pitt. And second was the ability to get involved, not just in an academic setting, but also the field work that was occasionally done, especially in graduate school, where you would go visit a planning area that could be discussed in school.
When you look back, do you feel that you have more of a love of our land than you ever thought you would?
Well, since I thought I was going to be a doctor, yes, I have
I guess so.
much more of an awareness of the issues related to land use than I ever thought I would have.
Yeah, there's a reason I ask that, and it comes from me personally. In the last few years, and yes, of course, we all love nature. I have again, in the last couple of years, much more respect and appreciation for it, and the beauty of our landscape, our forests, our waterways, all of that. When you take a step back and you look, it's like, wow, it's beautiful. Well, I think a lot of it we take for granted. And also, we take for granted what goes into planning. There's so many logistics involved. Yeah, a lot of us sit there and complain about traffic and things like that, but there's so much more going on than the general public really realizes. You feel the same?
Yes, I think, and an example is this horrendous flooding we're having in North Carolina and other places. I think you see that it isn't just a question of the water getting higher. It's also how do you deliver services and goods to people who are left with almost nothing because of the terrible flooding. And that requires coordination among different governments, and it requires coordination among different agencies at the federal, state, and local level to deliver those services.
What could be done, or what may have been done differently in the wake of that flooding? And Florida got hit bad, sure, but nothing like North Carolina and areas like that. What do you think could have been done? Could anything, something have been, proactive back in the day to prevent a lot of this?
Well, I think this was a major storm that caught everybody by surprise, and it's true that storms like this usually happen along the coast, and that yet here we have this inland flooding. I think it would be hard to pinpoint exactly what to do if this requires so much coordination. I don't think there could have been any more coordination that's already out there.
Well, I'm glad you brought this up, because my friend is an EMT, and he was considering deployment down to North Carolina by way of FEMA. And just what you said, he was describing that they have challenges getting supplies, being mobile to a lot of these areas. You can't change a lot of the land and the flooding, and you can't even plan for that sometimes. But in terms of supplies and rescues and all of that, could there anything been done, or in the future be done, to make that situation better?
Well, I think you have to rebuild some of the infrastructure that's been destroyed, and you have to have information programs for residents and business owners to understand the implications of flooding and emergency services. For my younger brother and his wife live in Hickory, North Carolina,
oh, wow,
which I consider to be up on a hilltop. But they had water in their house, they had damage, and power was out for several days. And so it can hit almost anywhere. Doesn't have to be along the coast in Florida.
You know, that strong point there in terms of rescue efforts, and we're never going to know. We're never going to know because every situation is different. And, you know, there are people saying this was of biblical proportions, never expected. I want to share with you from the last time we got together and we were talking about Robert Moses, and I was on Facebook, and, you know, they show you things that you're interested in. So there was like a historical Facebook page that had a post about Robert Moses and the parkway, and the speed limit back then was 40 miles an hour and strictly enforced. So I kind of laughed at that because, as you had shared, and I've lived on Long Island all my life, I never knew that Robert Moses was doing a lot of these things intentionally to prevent a lot of traffic. And there's proof. Like 40 was the max. Don't even go near it. Basically, that's what it was saying.
Yeah. Well, he did a lot of good things, and he did some bad things too. And he wanted to put expressways all over Manhattan, not just the ones that are there now, but he wanted a couple of crosstown expressways right through Washington Square Park in the Village, and one other one. And he was definitely a highway advocate.
If that were to have happened, those roadways that you're describing in New York City, what do you think the implication of that would have been?
Well, a lot of neighborhoods would have been destroyed, and people would have been displaced, and traffic might have gotten better initially, but it would have been worse overall in the long term. And so a more balanced program that looked at public transit and the relationship of land use and transportation facilities might have done the same thing in a better way.
I read something fairly recently that said putting those types of roadways, those expressways through residential areas is essentially the kiss of death for urban areas. It just never goes well, and that's based on past experience. So it sounds like in line with what we're talking about here.
Yeah, that was addressed in the latest Surface Transportation Act, passed a few years ago, and they talked about a program to help communities that have been impacted by major infrastructure projects that run through the community and in some cases isolate people from one side of the community to another. And that is a worthwhile effort. Projects in Philadelphia area, for example, along I-95, you're practically in the front door of some of the houses right on nearby, or garden apartment complexes, and that is not great when you have a major interstate highway running so close by.
You know, what we haven't talked about in planning is planning for weather, snow and such. What are your thoughts there? Is that even a lot of a consideration? Winter weather in areas.
Well, the federal agencies that are involved with the programs to predict weather, and I'm blocking on the name at the moment, but there are plenty of federal and state agencies that monitor weather patterns and weather trends, and I think that is a pretty good network that's already in place.
What is the consideration? If you're let's say a road is being resurfaced, or there's a new road being put in, let's say, what is the consideration with weather? I've always wondered about that.
If I was an engineer, I might be able to give you more details, but I would say the pavement, the ingredients that make up a road, those are all considered in the construction process. And the engineers that get involved in these highways from the transportation agencies, especially at the state level, they're well versed in the effects of weather and other things on the smooth flow of transportation.
Okay. So I didn't realize that. So that's down to the engineering level. The urban planning aspect of it would be where the road's going to go, but the finite details of the materials for the road and all that's more of an engineering thing.
Yes, and the Transportation Research Board in Washington has an annual conference in January, which I usually try to get to, and there are programs for engineers, for planners, for environmentalists, and the quality of pavement is usually discussed at every conference. So the engineering aspects of infrastructure projects are well documented.
I've heard that when an area is to be planned, the priority should be people first. Then I've heard bicycles, maybe transit after that, and cars and automobiles would be last. Let's say a top 4 list, which kind of surprises me. I believe it was in the Netherlands they had done that. You know, that was the priority order. And this is going back decades, but now those areas are ranked very high in terms of flow and such. What are your thoughts? You know, putting the people first in terms of priority, and then automobiles lower on the list. I would think automobiles would be a little bit higher up there.
Well, the example of the Netherlands is a good one because their priority is on bicycling and pedestrians and urban areas that work and not have conflicts, such as in Amsterdam. I've just lost my track of thought.
We were talking about the Netherlands and how things have improved because they focused on bicycles.
Oh, yes. And the main thing is you start with people, which is demographics, population and employment numbers. And those should be used to help decide what kinds of facilities are needed. And the priorities on a policy level can range from highways, transit, bicycle, pedestrian activities. And those should be aligned according to the demographics of the area and not just an arbitrary decision that, well, we've got a little bottleneck here, let's build a big highway to bypass it.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. We talk about bicycles, and where I am on Long Island, there are more and more bike lanes, and whenever they repave a road, that's a priority. It's to make a bike lane. I don't know if it is by you, but maybe they're taking those developers are taking a cue from places like the Netherlands, Canada, and making a bike lane a priority. And I look at them. Yeah, I like to ride my bike. Usually don't do it in traffic, but I never looked at it as a major plus, but apparently it is.
Yeah, well, bike lanes are very popular now, but the other thing that happens, especially in urban areas like Philadelphia, people sometimes cross over the bike lane because they're driving.
Yes.
And there have been pedestrian fatalities and bicyclist fatalities because of unprotected bike lanes. And that's a real problem.
It's a great point, because the ones I'm referring to, at least where I am, they aren't protected. You could just let's say you wanted to make a right-hand turn, and there's a lane for that, but you also have a bike lane there. Now you get over to the right. You may even just hug that bike lane to make your right-hand turn. Let's say there's a car in front of you, so you're going to use the extra space here that you have in front of you. There's no protection. I've almost yet to see a protected bike lane. Maybe somewhere in the city, maybe around a bridge or something like that, but it's just another lane of traffic. So yeah, to your point, Can be dangerous. Can be dangerous. It's just another reminder that we all need to look out.
Yes.
I'm looking forward next time we get together in having students call in and ask questions. We did get that one from Jesse, so that's what we're going to do moving forward. Is that okay on your end?
Yes. Now, those are coming in November, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay, because I'll be away from October 7th to October 27th, and then I realize there'll be things happening in New York in November.
Gotcha. Yeah. 3 weeks you'll be away, and interesting, you're hitting many different urban areas in your trip, going from Pennsylvania through New York, I'm going to say through Connecticut, and then to Rhode Island, right?
Right, and then into Massachusetts after that.
What do you think about I-95?
I-95 is a very important artery for the economic health of the Northeast Corridor. And it's when there was a terrible fire caused by an accident and a portion of I-95 was shut down, it just produced chaos, and they had to design bypasses and all that. And so I-95 is very important, and they're still retrofitting it in some places. They want to put a cover over I-95 in Philadelphia to add a park, and similar activities are occurring in other areas. So ideally you would integrate the highway with the community and its character, and if it wasn't that way, you can try to mitigate the consequences by retrofitting the design.
I have to tell you, looking at when I go to Connecticut and I'm on I-95, I get a spacious feel for most of it. Like, wow, a lot of lanes. It's laid out well. Yeah, there's traffic, sure. But on Long Island, it's not the same. You know, we have the Long Island Expressway, which I guess would be the equivalent to I-95 in Connecticut. Total different ballgame. Like I never want to say it's like, oh, I enjoy getting on the freeway on I-95, but if I have to, I feel good about it because it looks like there was a lot of really deep thought that went into it, and they used the land that they had very effectively. Where, in my view, the expressway on Long Island, and it's being widened here and there, it's still a tight ride. It's no surprise that it's congested.
Right, and those parkways that Robert Moses helped to design, they are designed for a slower moving traffic, and yet they're now handling faster moving traffic, and that creates problems for the driver and for the area.
I'll bet you if you look at the stats, the Northern and Southern State Parkway on Long Island versus the Long Island Expressway, in terms of if you had the same amount of traffic, I have to believe the amount of accidents on those parkways is much higher just because of what you're talking about.
Right. When I take my trip, and get off the Verrazano Bridge and the Belt Parkway and start on, I think it's the Meadowbrook Parkway, it's actually kind of enjoyable to have these curvilinear expressways and relatively slower speed. And then all of a sudden, you have to transfer over to the Long Island Expressway, and it is a totally different environment.
Yeah.
And it's just get it done as quickly as possible.
Yes. That's it. You nailed it, Richard. That seems like what it is. And yeah, when you're on those parkways, you see trees. You know, a couple of houses in the distance, but that's it. It is an enjoyable ride. You got to pay attention, with the curves. But when you're on the expressway, you see buildings and stores and houses, and it's a totally, totally different ride. You mentioned Bell Parkway. Don't even get us started on that one. We're out of time, but it's I try to avoid that at all costs if I can.
Yeah, well, I can't avoid it because I come off the Verrazano Bridge, and I'd rather be on that than sort of walking my way through Brooklyn and Queens.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, Richard, great talking with you, and always learn a lot about the things that we take for granted. Have a great trip. Be safe, and looking forward next time we get together when you come back.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. We'll be right back. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
So you see, son, good manners are very, very important. Someday, many years from now, when you're a grown-up, you'll be a man. And when you are, you should be a gentleman. Do you want me to go through it one more time?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Exactly. Always say please, thank you, you're welcome, and excuse me. Sit up straight, hold doors open for ladies. If a door's shut, then knock first. Don't burp, don't swear, don't speak with your mouth full, don't reach across people's plates, keep your elbows off the table.
What table?
And don't interrupt. While we're at it, don't stare, don't use foul language, don't call people names, but do remember people's names. Always share your toys, play nice, and cover your mouth when you cough or sneeze. On the bus, give up your seat to anyone who has trouble standing. Bottom line, treat others the way you'd like to be treated. Got it?
Got it.
And stop picking your nose.
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But spending just 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush their teeth is easier and could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain. For fun 2-minute videos to watch while brushing, visit 2min2x.org. That's 2min2x.org. A message from the Partnership for Healthy Mouths, Healthy Lives, and the Ad Council.